morning. It's a beautiful, beautiful Monday morning. It's about time we go into the dailies and see exactly what happened over the weekend and some of these issues that made the front page of the dailies this morning. My name is Tomisin. I'm the host for this morning's show, and of course, I'm joined by two gentlemen in the studio. One is a politician and a religious leader, and the other person is an attorney at law. I'm talking about the Funso, who's not a stranger to the show. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Tomisin.
And of course, Mr. Dapo, Akinosun, who is an attorney at law. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
Yes, we're talking basically this morning about those stories, that made the front page of the dailies. We take a quick break. When we come back, we look at the Daily Trust newspaper. That's where we're starting from. Yes, welcome back. I have a blinding smile this morning, I must tell you. All right, we're starting out with the Daily Trust newspaper. Like I said earlier, my name is Tomisin. If you're just joining us for the first time on the show, we do this Mondays through Friday every day, and we look into the dailies to see the stories that made the front page. Our guest this morning, like I said earlier, Venerable Funso is right here on my left, and of course, Mr. Dapo is on my right this morning. The NHR has enrollees grown over poor healthcare services. That's the story that made the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The National Health Insurance Scheme enrollees have cried out over poor services by their health maintenance organizations. That's the HMOs. And I must tell you, it's truly an eyesore. Venerable, what do you think? You're laughing, first.
I have to laugh because at times it's just the same old story over and over again. And it's actually a thing that, you see, when they say that whatever you cannot cry over, you just turn it into laughter.
Yes, definitely.
Just yesterday evening, I happened to have visited somebody in the hospital at Lasut, who is under the National Health Insurance Scheme, and the hospital where he is enrolled in could definitely not be able to take care of him, and so he went in to the government hospital. The situation became critical. They said he has to be in ICU.
Wow.
Funnily, the ICU units in Lasut has packed up. The only one that is functional within Lasut is the one that is privately owned within the university, and it will cost them a
lot of
500,000 naira to do that. The money is not there. So what do? You pray that the man will just pass on, or what? I think our health situation in Nigeria is very pitiable, and it's nothing to write home about.
And
you
quite
just pray
interesting.
that you don't force it.
No, but quite interesting. A couple of weeks ago in the papers, I think about 2 weeks ago, there was a story doing a breakdown of the amount of money that had been allocated to the health sector and the educational, I think it was the health sector in the last 10 years. And they had about 320 billion naira had been spent in the health sector. So I'm asking myself, how come we have not been able to translate that investment that we've done? Yes, little, compared to what other people do in other parts of the world. But how come we've not been able to translate that money into actual, enjoyment of these health facilities? What do you think, sir?
The amount of money being invested in it, although you mentioned a figure like 320 billion, it's still small compared to what is required. There is a dearth of infrastructure. Part of what keeps the hospital going, power. many hospitals pay so much on generating power,
Yeah, that's true.
maintaining power, that no matter how much they get, a lot of it first goes on poor infrastructure. Before you talk of maintaining the staff who are there, maintaining hygiene, those are ongoing expenses that every hospital has to incur, whether you have a patient or not.
Or not.
World over, health services are very expensive. World over, doctors. What you find now is that there's a dearth of medical practitioners. Everybody's going away to where they can get better income, better salary. So those that are even left behind are struggling to cope with the enormity of the patients they have to deal with, and also the lack of infrastructure to deal with it. Every medical equipment costs money. I mean, and they don't come cheap by any standard. The laboratories, the tests they have to carry out to even get to know what is wrong with the patient. So before you can perform any surgery or anything, you first need to even understand. Do an MRI, and you find that these equipment are just expensive. A power surge could spoil one of them, and you find that hospitals are struggling to keep abreast. So the monies that are invested in it as well, and that doesn't talk of the amount of money that is mismanaged as well. Because you also have a lot of mismanagement in some of the sectors. You find the younger doctors going on strike because they're saying, maintain these hospitals. The monies that are given is not too small to maintain sometimes, but there's also lack of experience in facility management. And don't forget, a person who's trained as a doctor may not necessarily be the best facility manager.
That's
and
true.
until we start professionalizing some of these services and getting proper professionals to manage the hospitals, to manage the facilities, we'll find that you put a doctor who all he has done all his life is to treat patients, now finds himself as medical director.
So he's wondering, what do I do?
Managing the facility and infrastructure is a really big problem.
Anyone who is going to do that should actually have gone to, management.
The factor is actually still there. That all this money that you're saying are invested in it. The corruption is still a very, very big thing that we grapple with in Nigeria. Even this money invested in it, how many are actually applied? How much is actually applied? That's just still a problem.
Wow, the way it is right now, they have a breakdown on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. Formal sector, social health insurance program, the formal sector, the public versus the organized private sector. Contributions, you have the public contributes, the employer pays 3.5%, employee 1.75%, in the private sector 10 to 5, and the breakdown just shows that despite the amount of money that the HMOs still contribute, that's the organization and of course the staff still contributes, they still do not get, the kind of response. They said some hospital staff even demand for direct payment from enrollees by claiming his or her HMO does not cover the treatments that they require. Sometimes the HMO just covers malaria and some tiny things. The moment you have to do anything that is remotely surgical, you have to pay out of pocket, and which defeats the purpose in the first place. But let's look at some other stories. We have police deny invading Nnamdi Kalu's residence. As on page 12, our 2 men raped and impregnated me. Woman is a legend. That is on page 42 of the Daily Trust newspaper. $9.6 billion ruling while we're negotiating with PNID. The federal government is still talking about that. And xenophobia, Ramaphosa sends envoy to Nigeria. Mr. Keshu is sent an envoy to Nigeria after threatening that those Nigerians who had gone already may not be able to enter the South African space in 10 years.
Yes, well, like every other country, it's good to manage the relationships. He may have made some statements out of emotions, out of sentiments, but the truth is that when the chips are down, Nigeria has been a big source of support to South Africa. Even in times of ongoing businesses, the largest South African businesses still make money from Nigeria. So whichever way he cuts it, they cannot totally afford to cut off Nigeria. However, we cannot also remove that part of the problems we have is the criminal elements that have gone from Nigeria and are infiltrating their system. And of course, the professionals who have left Nigeria, the hardworking citizens who are there to do the work, are not really harassed by the xenophobic attacks. It is those who are who can be mistaken or who are sometimes involved in activities that are not nationalistic that are the ones that get an attack. Of course, in the line of such fire, you will find some people who get in the wrong place at the right time or at the right place in the wrong time, and they also fall victim of these things. However, by and large, I think we've come a long way with South Africa. We cannot allow this kind of incidents to ruin the relationships. We can't.
All right, the Guardian newspaper this morning, we look at the banner headline. The picture, very interesting picture of the state governor and, you know, President Muhammadu Buhari congratulating President Abiodun on his way back from Kogadugo, Burkina Faso, where he accompanied President Muhammadu Buhari to attend a special one-day summit organized by regional leaders on security. The tribunal judgment, of course, affirming Abiodun's election broke on Saturday. So he was being congratulated by the president, and that picture is right there. Banner headline front page, Guardian newspaper. Federal government to make 2 trillion naira in 2020 from increased VAT. That's what they're alleging. Experts task government on remittances and transparency since exemption for food, education, and primary health care. So that's what that's going to be. People are already seeking exemptions from the 7.2% proposed tax rate. I know that very professional way is shaking his head and so he's wondering how would you want to increase VAT in the first place.
You know, the problem with taxation is normal. People should pay tax. People normally should pay tax. For everything you earn, you should pay tax. But tax has to do on trust, on what I'm getting from the government in return. The problem we have in Nigeria is that you keep putting money, you want to pay in tax, but the government is not giving you anything in return. Like the learned gentleman just said now, you have this situation in Nigeria whereby we have infrastructural deficiency. I provide my own electricity at home. Even the one provided by the electricity company, I still have to subsidize it. We don't have a transformer we have in our area broke down. We have to contribute money from one house to the other to buy a new transformer. You have to contribute money to buy the pole and buy the wire to service the transformer. When there is pothole on the street and government will not fix it, we have to contribute money within the area to fix it. We have to provide our own security by paying monthly security apart from the one you have in your house. You have to provide your own water and also treat it at home. Then you ask yourself, what exactly is government doing for you? Because these are basic amenities. Though you pay for them, but they are supposed to be provided initially. But these things are not there. And so the trust is not there. Even this VAT thing you are talking about, a lot of contractors were talking the other day, they said, even when they are getting contract from government, they impute VAT onto it. Government will pay them, collect the VAT. Government is not even paying itself its own VAT. And so quite a lot of things that are there. And so you wonder, how are you paying money and you are not getting anything from it?
You want to respond?
No, the truth is that no matter how we look at it, the country is not raising enough revenue to meet the infrastructure gaps and deficits. Over the years, as you rightly said, there's been a lot of mismanagement of public resources. Monies that were even allocated were never applied to what they were meant to do. So there's such a wide gap in the infrastructure now that it will take 10 years of continuous funding. How do you fund it? Where does the money come from? All we've been doing, we've been an oil-dependent economy. Most of the revenue comes from the oil. And if the oil that we get is servicing 200 million people, how much does it come to per capita, per head? What you find is that in a country like Nigeria, we have about roughly 200 million people. The annual budget for the country, if you break it into dollars, comes to about $2 billion. When you go to Brazil, which has about 210 million people, the budget for for the country is about $23 billion for the same period. So what you find is that from the get-go, we don't have enough money coming into the system. How does the government raise money to meet these needs? It has to be by way of other things apart from this oil revenue we've been looking at. There has to be alternative sources of raising money. Now, taxation provides the easiest way to do that. But as he has said, how do you monitor that what the money is asked for is spent? And I think the more pain we feel now as we pay harder taxes, higher taxes, people are going to start holding government more accountable. People are going to start asking more questions. Because before now, the taxes did not really get to us. It was only the money that was stolen from public, from the oil revenue that came, that we complained about. But now, as he says, my street is not fixed. And I see my local government chairman. Many people are now taking an interest in me. Who is even my local government chairman?
My local government
How is this
chairman? I'm
money?
interested
More
in
of
that.
us are taking interest in going to vote than before. Before, we didn't care who won the elections. But now everybody is now asking questions that, who is this person? And I think it's forcing us to come to a better realization of asking questions and who's in government.
It's something that I want to point out there is that the people who are governing us, how much tax are they paying? I want to have a breakdown of the tax or pay as you earn that comes from the National Assembly.
So
with that bogus amount they pay themselves, how much is deducted from it as taxes? And you look at a lot of things, and you see, you look at all these things, and you just wonder the system is not working.
That's a very big allegation. System is not working. Of course, on the other side of 9, we're looking at the issue of the xenophobic attacks and the new developments right there. People are calling that President Muhammadu Buhari sues the South African government. Of course, some Nigerians were detained and stopped from coming. But so many things that happened. So we look at all of that, all of the issues on the other side of 9. So I want to suspend all of that, and that's the story on the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning. But let's talk about the $9.6 billion judgment. Probe extensive, intensive, and borderless, says Balami, and is alleging that those behind the $9.6 billion contracts of PNID are unpatriotic.
Definitely. What you find about that judgment itself is that the contract ab initio had nothing to do with the federal government of Nigeria. And as has been alleged, the contract was not even signed by the Minister of Petroleum or did not get to the Attorney General's office. It was purely a contract between ADAX, Mobil, and PNID. The country was to benefit from the gas at the end of it. What it was about is that federal government says, if you can provide us dry gas, we will buy it for our power plants. But PNID was to get the gas from the flared gas by Mobil and ADAX. Mobil and ADAX said to PNID categorically, we cannot supply the quantity of wet gas, that is unprocessed gas, that you are requesting for. And so the contract never took off, didn't have the capacity to take off. But PNID is now suing the federal government that I would have made money if I got the gas. But in the course of it, from investigations that have been revealed thus far, it shows that some people advised PNID that go ahead, sue the government. You can join the government in this regard because Ministry of Petroleum, who signed the agreement at some point in time, is also the same thing as federal government of Nigeria. Unfortunately, the federal government was blindsided at that time. The representations they made were not accepted by the arbitral panel. because some opinions were given to the arbitral panel to say that Ministry of Petroleum and the federal government are one. And this therein was why the judgment was given against the federal government, which the federal government is now trying to upturn. But ab initio, it had nothing to do with the federal government. So, so when the allegation that is tainted with fraud, there's a lot of truth in it. And until all the facts are exposed and unearthed, you'll be amazed to see that some of the things that have gone on there is just a scam by the P&ID company against Nigeria.
Wow, that's a very, very big one. Thank God a lawyer is in the studio this morning to look at it and look at all the sides to the story. But an interesting one I'd like Venerable Funso to look at before we call it a wrap on the newspaper segment is the story on the front page of the Punch newspaper that says drunk policeman stabs 9 persons at Ondo nightclub. How do you propose that we come, that the same kind of people are supposed to inspire confidence in the people now go about? This is not the first time we're getting a security personnel or someone who is in that space, you know, getting involved in, you know, all kinds of stories. 4-year students, 2 of them last week, were killed by killer cops. And the Fayemi is also saying, fish out the 4-year killer cops. It looks as if there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of focus on the Nigerian police force right now. And I know for a fact that the National Human Rights Commission has been working with the Nigerian police force to ensure that they retrain and reorient their personnel so that they don't get trigger happy. But we still get issues. Why would somebody enter a nightclub, get drunk, a policeman, and then stab 9 persons?
Well, the police have problems, you know, all over the world. Things like this will happen. But I think in our own climb here,
yes,
it has to do more with something that is already a general norms in the society. I think a lot of us are getting psychologically, and we're getting psychological and emotional problems due to the various situations around us. And that's why normally when you look at, there are things that doesn't happen here in Nigeria before. You don't see this high level of depression, emotional problem. But as the economic hardship is getting harder on people, people get skilled at times. And it's the police, they are also part of the society. And so if there are a lot of mad people in the society, there will be a lot of mad people within the police force also.
Wow.
They go through the same stress all of us are getting through. I always say, if not for some of the social things, religious and things that we have around there that is cushioning the effect, we will have more mad people on the street now. And so it's a psychological thing. And so I just have to say that the police, when they're getting there, at least we have a chaplaincy within the Nigerian police now, which we don't have before. Because, and that means there is more of religion.
Somebody should begin to go for psychiatric evaluation, maybe on a monthly basis, to actually check the level of, I don't know, how to balance it out.
If there are doctors in Nigeria that can even do that, if the doctors have not emigrated. I mean, of course, the police are our friends. Police are human beings like us. As he has rightly said, there is a lot of pressure on the average policeman. Apart from that, the fact that he's poorly paid, he's badly accommodated, he's subject to attacks by both criminals and good citizens, because they're always on the wrong side. You just see some crazy robbers going somewhere and they see a man in uniform, they shoot him. You know how many policemen have lost their lives in the course of the last few years? So that on its own could cause depression, and to other people who have lost a friend, have lost an associate, and things like that happen on a daily basis. Whilst I do not support and I totally condemn policemen who are drunk on duty and who misbehave and go and kill people, we also need to understand that there is a lot of pressure on them, and we also need to assist the police sometimes. Because you see some people who are stopped at checkpoints by gun-carrying policeman, and you start arguing with him. You don't know what kind of pressure the man is under. Look, when that man is carrying a gun, first of all, I behave myself. I behave myself very
You're
well.
a lawyer,
No,
and you
no,
still behave yourself.
So the truth is that one accidental shot can change this nature of your life and forever. Even if it doesn't kill you, it maim you. So there are times when you don't argue with a man. You can go and report him later at a station. But at that point in time, he has a gun. He's your boss. Comply and leave the place. And when you get back, you go and fight your battles.
One point he made there, there's something that is very, very prominent nowadays, what we call transferred aggression. A lot of people are under pressure, seriously, and just avoid getting into conflict with people.
The police.
Not only with the police, with people. Because people have what we call transferred aggression. Like Fela said in one of, he said this condition will bring out the beast in us. The condition is already bringing out the beast in a lot of people. Even on the road, normal traffic situation, don't argue with people. It might get on the other side of the other person. Transferred aggression.
Wow. And that's it on the headlines this morning. It's been an interesting one. We go on this short break. Shayo is waiting to give you the bumper sports package for this beautiful Monday morning. We'll be back shortly.